Hey, what's up, everybody? Today is January the 13th, 2024. Today, and for the last couple of days, I've had Eleanor up on jacks. Clementine has been running all the errands for me, and so now it's Eleanor time. She's getting a little bit of love. She's my main squeeze right here. So what are we working on? All right. So what I found was that the driver's side rear hub and actually the brake piston was leaking fluid, and it leaked all over my drums, mainly the driver's side. So I've had the drums resurfaced. You can see the resurface work. Receipt is in there. I got to get these cleaned up. I probably should have cleaned them up before getting them resurfaced. Damn, I thought they would have done that for me. Anyways, drums are resurfaced. This is a really nasty one down here. Nah, can't really tell which one's a nasty one, but so those are ready. I got a new set of brake shoes, pistons, seals. Gonna reuse the bearings, seals, and then I got some seals for the front for Clementine, but that's not what we're doing right now. And at this very moment, I am rebuilding the hubs. I am chasing the threads in them. Why? Because the original studs that were in there, let's see if I have a sample of one. Here we go. The original studs that were in there, majority of them were all stripped. So I had to go in there and take them out. Now that I'm here, that one's finished. Just threw a little coat of paint on it. But I'm chasing the threads. After the threads are chased, got these new studs. These are for exhaust manifold, but they should work fine. So then those are gonna go in after the coat of paint. We could start assembling this. Brakes are almost ready to start assembling. I also even have a hardware kit for it. Where the frick is the hardware kit? I don't know. I'll find the hardware kit a little later. Oh, here it is. All right, brake hardware kit. So I'll show you pictures of progress. Oh, what else did I do here? I took off all the grease that was caked on it for years, as best as I could without dropping the axle, and gave it a little coat of paint where I had bare metal. And it was pretty nasty down there. You can see all that crust that's down there on the floor. All that is look at the wire brush that I used. I used the wire brush even right there on under next to the stand. All that shit right there. Why? Well, I discovered that my vent tube right there, right where my finger's pointing at here, right there, the cap is missing. So I got a new vent tube on order. Vent tube is coming in, and then I saw all of the crust all along here. This is why it was so pretty nasty on this side. And got that cleaned up. See, there's a little bit of remnants there. I just can't get a brush in there, so that's why I'm not. I mean, other than taking the rear axle out, which I'm not gonna do because it has fresh new U-bolts and rebuilt leaf springs and Bilstein 5100 shocks. The whole rear suspension is refreshed. I really don't want to fuck with removing the axle, because then that means I need new U-bolts, and I think that they're like $30 a pair, if I'm not mistaken. Probably more now with inflation. All right. So spindle is covered. Got this backing plate on there. It's just mocked up right now. It's not tightened down. But even the backing plate was like really nasty coated in like years of and even the brake oil that was leaking through the cylinder here had crystallized. I don't know what they call it. Like, it gets hot and then it turns to like a coat, so it would always squeak, and I was always finding my brake fluid low. So that's what we're working on right now. After this is complete, we're moving on to the front, and I'll show you the front really quick. So the front has been recently refreshed, but one of these studs where the shims goes, the nut keeps coming loose because it's not tacked on. It broke off, so I gotta fix that. I'm gonna replace the upper control arms. These upper control arms are from a what is it, a second generation Toyota pickup, 2-wheel drive, so sometimes they pop and make all kinds of weird noises. So I'm gonna take these and put them on the Clementine, and I have those right there off of a 91, which is more correct for this year truck, which is an 89. So upper control arms are going in, also of course with energy suspension bushings, as everything else is in here, energy suspension. My only one concern here is when I remove since I've driven already a couple thousand miles with it, where I have right here, I don't want to pop this, and these are new, fairly new. Yeah, it's just a little seal right there, not a big deal. Anyways, I don't want to pop these boots. I don't want to bust the boots. If I bust the boots, then I'm going to need new ball joints, and I really don't want to fuck with ball joints again. So that's why I'm putting this one off. I'm putting the harder job off for the end. And this power steering gear, this one's coming out. It's got a small leak on it. You can see a little bit of a droplet there of power steering fluid. That thing that looks like a booger. Yep, right there. See that? Yep. So this thing has a slow leak. See it on my finger there. Yep. And I have a rebuilt unit sitting on the shelf right now, so I got to take this one out and throw the rebuilt unit in there while I'm at it. So front is upper control arms and power steering pump, and tack weld a nut. So it's a couple of jobs going on there. So I'll keep you posted on this one. In the meantime, Clementine is my main squeeze at the moment. She's the one that's helping me get all the errands taken care of. As soon as those control arms come out, they're going in this one so that I could install the 6 lug wheels on there. All right, anyways, that's where we're at today. All right, so here we are after the threads have been chased. Let's see if I could get a good shot of that. You can see the threads are really clean now. You could actually see the threads. And there was a bunch of this in there. Let's see if I could get a better shot of that. I tried to get it in that time-lapse video. Let's see. Here we go. Right there. Focus on that. So that was silicone from the previous time that the brakes were done, and this was covered in silicone. The flange, it had no gasket on it, and there's actually a gasket that's supposed to go there. So all that silicone got in there, and it was hard to remove. And then all my studs were the majority of them were all jacked up, so I had to take out the original studs. And in case you're wondering what we got here, what's this stuff that I'm spraying? Sorry, let me back out. This is pure acetone. I recognize it because it's the new bottle and also what the cap looks like. And this here is a blend of acetone mixed with power steering fluid. And what I do is when the pressure runs low, I just hook it up to the I got a chuck for a tire chuck right into that Schrader valve and recharge it. and I just keep adding more. So instead of buying cans and cans of brake cleaner, acetone, 1 gallon, should last forever, and just pour it into this can. Just beware that you probably won't make it through a gallon without burning all the seals. The acetone eats away at the seals. That's why I have this can over here. That's it's no good anymore. All the seals in it are bad. And that's about it. So, oh, what else we got? Okay, so this is the clean one already. As you can see, those threads have already been chased. This is the passenger side. And I shot it with a little bit of Rusto there. And I just got to turn it around and shoot the back. And then clean this one, the surfaces, with acetone, and it's ready for paint. All right, so now we're getting ready to prepare the brake job. And in order to do this job of the axle, in order to put back the brakes, the hub and the drum are all one assembly. So what ends up happening is that you got to put back the brakes together before you can start putting the hub and the bearings back together and sealing up the axle. So here you can see that I'm taking the tools that I'm using is wire wheels, a grinder, acetone, and wire brushes to remove as much of all that crustiness that's on there from the previous, since the last time that this job was done. And the way that I like to approach things is I like to get as much of the grime off as possible. It's all old crusted grease, and I also need to remove all of the residual where the brakes are going to touch, where they come in contact with the inner part of the drum, because that could ruin the brake job. You'd have to open it back up. The thing about this is that if you open it, you're going to need new seals. So you got to do it right the first time, so that way you're not opening it up again and having to replace seals and do silicone sealing again. And you'll see how this job all works out. But so here we have the grinding wheel, removing all that old crust, and then after all that old crust is clean, then we're going to get into putting a tap and chasing all of the threads of all that old nastiness. And here I use a mix of 50-50 acetone with automatic transmission fluid to chase the threads. And definitely after the threads are chased, use air compressor to blow it out. Then with everything all nice and clean, no more petroleum products, no more transmission fluid, no more brake fluid, go through and sand down the surfaces where the brakes mate, sand it down a bit, clean it with acetone, and then sand it down a little bit more, just to make sure you get all of the residual petroleum off of it. That's the main thing here. Whatever method you use, the goal is to make sure that there's no oils left on there. Not even the oils from your fingertips is you don't want that. Then next we get into preparing the brake lines. So now we're getting into the rebuilding the brakes. So here we're rebuilding the brake lines. We're putting in new brake cylinders, and you can see here where the brake cylinders mount, and we're attaching the brake line back to it. We had to remove that brake line because the previous cylinder, the old one, needed to come out. So attaching the brake line, and this is all just mocked up, it's not tightened in. Everything gets tightened up once I get a couple of threads in on the bolts and on the brake line. So we're just getting everything just started here. Alright, so now with the cylinders and the rigid brake line all put back together, we're ready to start assembling the brakes. So first thing that you got to put in is the hand brake, and that's the cable that goes from the hand brake from inside the cab to the drums. And it's a pain in the ass to get that thing to come through and to attach to the lever that goes inside the drum. So here you can see me struggling a bit, trying to figure out how I'm going to pull back that spring, because it's spring loaded. I'm gonna pull back that spring to clear it so that I could get that lever in there. And so that's, if there's a tool that you have that can help you with that, it would expedite it. I actually struggled with this for about a good 45 minutes trying to figure it out, trying to find the right tool. You can see here in the video I'm going through a bunch of different tools just trying to get it to go back. All right, so then once you got this thing peeled back and you could get the lever in there, all right, and this is where I'm at here at this step, then you could proceed with assembling the rest of the brake assembly that goes inside the drums. After I got that pain in the ass brake line put in, right here I'm assembling the driver's side. So I put in the brake line on the passenger side, switched over to the driver's side, put in the brake line on the driver's side, and once you're on the driver's side, it's reassembly of the complete brake system. So once we get to the end of this, I'll pause it there and hold it for a little bit to allow the viewer to see what the assembled brake on the driver's side looks like. There it is. Take a screenshot. That's what it should look like. Here we come back to the passenger side, and now we continue with the assembly of the brakes on the passenger side. Bam, there it is. Take a screenshot, that's the passenger side. Alright, so once you have the brakes assembled, we're ready to start assembling the bearings and the whole hub and attaching the drum. So the first thing that I'm doing here is I'm making sure to remove all the old residual. I'm trying not to damage the paint. That little hand right there that you see is my son, and I'm teaching him at the same time, explaining to him this whole process. And what we're trying to make sure is that the metal pieces that there's a lot of metallic pieces that fall in there from when I put in the bearing race. And the bearing race, I put it in there by hammering it with a piece of copper pipe. And the reason why I use copper pipe is because it's softer than the steel that the bearing race is made out of, and I don't want to mar the bearing race. So I used a piece of copper pipe, and of course a lot of little bits and pieces of copper pipe were in there, so that's what we were doing. And then as we're getting these bearings ready, you can see all that oil in that bucket. That was all of the brake grease from when I pulled it out. Sorry, not brake grease, brake fluid that was sitting in there contaminated the grease from the previous owner. And so here I am, I'm cleaning up the bearings. Got a bearing packer packing the grease, and this right here is putting the new seal on it. And the new seal, I tapped it in with a hammer handle, wood on steel, because you don't want to bend any of this stuff, you don't want to damage it. Once the seal is in place, then you're ready to go ahead and put on the drum. The drum goes on with these 6 bolts. 6 bolts, put them in hand tight, and then torque them down in a cross pattern. I didn't use a torque wrench. I don't have the manual in front of me to torque them down to spec, but I did torque them in nice and snug. Not gorilla tight, but nice and snug. It'll hold. Alright, so once the hub is ready, packed with grease, and the drum is attached to it, we're ready to pack the grease into the front bearings. put the front bearings in, and then put in the bearing lock washer. I forget what it's called, bearing lock, I think, with a special washer and special screws that go into it. I ran out of battery on the driver's side, so you can see that happening here. Before I get into it, the other thing too is to prepare the axle. I had to chase all the threads on the axle. It was pretty nasty, and cleaned it up nicely. Throw a little bit of coat of paint on the part that's exposed on the outside, and clean up with acetone all of the entire shaft and the splines, and get it nice and clean, ready. And then it goes into the hub. And so before we put in the hub, it goes silicone seal, silicone axle, cone washer, and it ran out of battery on the driver's side. So here we are, we're doing it again on the passenger side and try to capture it one more time. So it's silicone, seal, and then silicone again on the outside part of the seal, and then the axle goes in. And then after the axle goes in, you apply all of the cone washers, and after the cone washers, you insert the other set of washers. I think they're lock washers. And after the lock washers, then you go ahead and tighten it down. I didn't have a manual, so I don't know what the torque specs are, but I put them in nice and snug. Not gorilla tight, I'm not stripping any threads here, but I'm making sure that it's not going to come loose.